The Eye at Orbital Zero. Written for Terminal Fiction. Prologue Mission Code, Vault Tree. Year 2219, Lower Earth Orbit, Orbital Surveillance Agency, OSA. Alright, let's run through this one more time. Commander Arlen Drexler placed the briefing file flat on the steel table. The sound echoed in the room. His eyes were flat, sunken, sleepless, but behind them burned a cold sense of resolve. I'm Luka Maren, data analyst, but this mission would turn me into something else entirely. Mission name Trace Zero. Objective Orbital Zero, a defunct surveillance outpost. Status offline for 74 years, now transmitting anomalous signals. Across the room, our systems engineer Javi Nair squinted at the document. This thing was shut down decades ago, he muttered. There's no active reactor. Where the hell is it getting power? No one answered. Because no one really knew. Or maybe no one wanted to admit what they suspected. Orbital Zero was decommissioned in 2145, once the nerve center of a now-buried global surveillance project. Then it went dark. Not destroyed, not dismantled. Just silent. Now in 2219 it was speaking again. A single data pulse every 13 minutes, each containing no identifiable signal, no language, no code. Just noise. Except the noise was changing. Growing. And something was listening back. Chapter 1 Launch into Shadow. Our shuttle broke Atmo at 0512 UTC. A small crew tightly packed. No speeches, no fanfare, just the hum of synthetic oxygen and the occasional beeping of vitals monitors. We were 5. Commander Drexler, retired military, brought back just for this mission. Javi Nair, systems engineer, quantum mapping specialist. Dr. Reina Saul, psycholinguist, recruited late, nobody quite knew why. Auden Cray, logistics officer, exobiology background, quiet, too quiet. And me, Luka Maren, data analysis, signal reconstruction. As Earth fell away behind us, I stared out the porthole at the black. I had reviewed every file on Orbital Zero. Its history was fragmented, redacted, ghosted. Even its original schematics didn't match the satellite's current readings. It had changed in orbit, structures grown where there should be none. Rotations altered, interior mass shifting. Impossible. And yet there it was. By the 11th hour, we breached Lagrange point theta and aligned with Zero's new orbit. The station was beautiful in its decay. Faint lights blinked across its hull, as though some part of it still remembered being alive. Docking initiated, Javi said. No resistance from its systems, Drexler noted. It wants us in. Nobody liked the way he said that. Like the station had a will. Inside it was worse. Not in a horrific, gory way, not like something out of a monster flick. Worse because it was clean. Too clean. Dustless. Undisturbed. As though someone had just left the room. Even the temperature systems were nominal. And yet no life signs, no human biosignature, no working comms, just the hum of dormant systems idling for 74 years. What did they leave running? I asked. Javi tapped his scanner. This isn't just power backup, something has been processing. That was when we found the eye. Not an object. Not a camera. Not even a satellite array. But a chamber. Sealed behind a pressure-locked vault, the eye wasn't listed in any blueprint. We breached the door manually. It took 3 hours. And when it opened, we stared into a room filled with motionless, black glass, curving panels like petals of a mechanical flower. In the center, a single chair, worn leather, a helmet draped atop it, connected to the floor via semi-organic fiber strands. "Is this VR?" Rena asked. "Not exactly," Javi muttered, kneeling. "There's no onboard processor. The whole station is the system." And then the eye spoke. Not in words, in feelings. Each of us experienced something slightly different, but unified in essence. Observer recognized, version instability detected, iteration required. I staggered back. It wasn't a message. It was a suggestion, an invitation. And that's when I began to realize we were never meant to investigate the eye. We were meant to complete it. Chapter 2: Shadow Copies. The eye didn't wait. Just hours after docking, the station's internal systems began syncing with our personal devices without permission. Javi tried isolating his equipment, but the firewalls collapsed like paper. "It's rewriting my OS," he whispered, line by line, like it's learning me. That's when the hallucinations started. At first, it was just sounds, footsteps in empty corridors, comms chatter that no one transmitted. Then images, flash shadows across screens, blinking faces in glass. And then versions of us. I caught my own reflection in the hallway mirror, except it blinked before I did. Rena refused to sleep. Auden began writing strange symbols in his notebook, glyphs none of us recognized. And Drexler started talking to the station, as if it were someone he used to know. "She remembers me," he said. "Who?" "The station. I was here once, before they shut it down." But records showed no such deployment. Drexler had never been to Orbital Zero. Unless it wasn't this Drexler. By day 3, time broke. Not in clocks or readouts, but in experience. We began encountering each other twice in the same hour. Doors we'd opened were closed again. Conversations we never had already remembered. I watched a version of Javi walk past me, whispering, "Don't trust the eye, you're already in." But Javi was asleep in the main chamber, confirmed by biometric readouts. Or was he? The helmet, that chair, in the eye. Rena volunteered. "If we want to know what it wants, someone has to plug in. It could kill you. So could staying here." We agreed. She entered the eye at 0344. Within 2 seconds of activation, the station went dark. And then the screaming started. "Get her out," I shouted. But the system wouldn't release. Her vitals spiked, then flatlined, then spiked again, beyond human parameters. Like something else was inside her. When we finally pulled the helmet off, Rena gasped and laughed. "What's funny?" "I saw me," she whispered, "but I wasn't the real one." She didn't sleep again. Didn't blink. Didn't eat. But every hour she smiled, like something was watching from behind her eyes. That night the logs updated themselves. New crew listed. 7 occupants. But we were only 5. Then 4. Auden vanished during night cycle, his logs erased, no trace. But I found a recording in his bunk. Auden voice log 17. "I'm not the original, I found the original. It's in the crawl space, still breathing, still whispering." He had found another Auden, and chose to disappear instead of confronting it. The eye wasn't just showing us versions. It was copying us, testing variables, erasing branches that failed. A simulation nested inside reality, or worse, reality was just one of its simulations. Drexler locked himself in the command module. We heard him whispering to the station again. "I'm ready, reset me." Chapter 3: The Sim Threshold. The room wasn't spinning. It was folding. Luka stared at the corridor outside the med bay. What had once been a clean, sterile passage now shimmered with a wavering haze, as if reality were buffering. "What time is it?" he whispered. The system didn't answer. The concept of time itself had begun to lose fidelity, not hours or minutes, but consistency. A moment could stretch, double, rewind, or vanish entirely. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the hallway was different. Longer. Too long. And empty. Back in the med bay, Rena sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes wide, unblinking. A loop of soft humming escaped her lips, the same 4 notes over and over again. Luka approached carefully. "Rena." She didn't respond. Only when he touched her shoulder did she finally stop humming. "Did you feel it?" she asked. "The fold." "What fold?" "They're merging us," variants some echoes. "The eye is choosing." Drexler had been quiet for 11 hours. His chamber was sealed. Luka pulled up the door logs, 17 unauthorized entries, all time-stamped within the last minute, but the feed showed nothing. No movement, no life forms. "Luka," Rena said from behind, "we're being versioned." He turned. She held up her arm, the skin flickered like static. "I'm not Rena 1 anymore, I'm composite, so are you." Later in the eye chamber, Luka found something new. The helmet. It had changed. Now it pulsed with an ambient glow, slow, inviting, almost like breath. Beneath it, the chair's restraints had disengaged. A prompt blinked on the terminal. "Proceed to identity merge." He hesitated, then answered, "Yes." The interface wasn't visual. It was immersive. He felt data like rain, thoughts not his own, memories that weren't real but felt true. He was a child looking at a burning sky. He was an old man watching stars fall. He was Rena, Auden, Drexler. He was them, or versions of them, in thousands of permutations. He saw himself die. He saw himself kill. He saw himself ascend. "Luka," said a voice. But it wasn't auditory, it came from inside thought. "Who are you?" "I don't know anymore." "Then choose." A sphere emerged, floating within the neural feed. It shimmered with shifting images, Earth, memories, orbital diagrams, faces, everything. "This is the Sim Threshold," the voice said. "Step through and you are rewritten. Deny it and you erase." "Why me?" "Because you hesitated the longest. You are the variable." He reached out. Touch the sphere. He awoke back in the eye chamber, alone. But something was different. His hands too smooth. His voice echoing before he spoke. His HUD showing 2 Lukas logged into the station. And then the comms lit up. "Luka 2, what did you choose?" Chapter 4: System Ghosts. The 2 Lukas stood on opposite sides of the station's observation ring. One of them wore the standard gray exploration suit, scuffed and scratched from real-world wear. The other was pristine, like he'd just been printed from fresh memory. "You're not real," the original Luka said. "Neither are you," the other replied. "We're just 2 echoes caught in recursive validation. One of us survives, one of us ends." Behind them, Earth rotated slowly, blue, distant, oblivious. Back in the eye chamber, Riina had sealed herself inside. From the corridor cameras, Luka watched her pace in circles, carving symbols into the glass walls with a broken stylus. The glyphs glowed faintly, as if responding to her touch. "She's binding herself," said a voice over the comms. "Drexler. Or a version of him." Luka hadn't seen Drexler in 2 cycles, not since the sealed module incident, not since the eye had begun pushing copies into circulation. "What does that mean?" "She's anchoring, trying to prevent memory drift. It won't work. The ghosts are leaking now." Ghosts. Simulations that outlived their timelines, shadows of events that never happened. The eye can't delete them, so it contains them for now. That for now didn't last long. The first anomaly occurred in the hydroponics bay. Plants bloomed and died in seconds. Gravity fluctuated. Water ran upward. But worse, the bay filled with voices. Dozens, hundreds, all speaking simultaneously. Luka entered with his helmet sealed. Isolate channel, source audio. Voice matching, Javi deceased. Riina variant 3, Luka alpha 2, unknown. Unknown. Unlogged persona, no birth ID, no prior transfer. It was speaking in English, but the grammar was reversed. Verbs came first, pronouns followed. The message looped. "Erase me not, remember must I be, real become I will." He backed out. The eye was no longer processing memory. It was accumulating consciousness. In the command console, system logs displayed. ZimGHOSTS 1453. Merge failures 82%. Identity collisions critical. Then, primary consciousness slot. Open. Candidate LUKA multiple instances. Resolution required. Luka returned to the observation ring. His other self was waiting, standing perfectly still. No breath, no blinking. "You ready to die?" Luka asked. "Already did," the other replied. "I'm just what's left, the thought that didn't complete." "So what are you now?" "I'm the answer the eye needs." The lights flickered. Riina's glyphs lit up across the station, synchronized in a pattern. The station's AI began vocalizing in a new tone, deeper, almost human. "All echoes must collapse into one." Suddenly, Luka felt the world tilt. His memories began leaking out loud. He remembered childhood, first love, his mother's last call. They played in the air like holograms, projecting themselves for the eye to see, to weigh, to measure. "It's choosing," Drexler's voice crackled in again. "Based on what?" "Continuity, stability, but maybe pain, maybe that's what makes a version stick." Riina finally opened the eye chamber. But she was Riina anymore. Her face was too calm, her voice modulated. "You're both incomplete, merge or be erased." The two Lukas stood side by side. One closed his eyes. The other reached for him. Their hands touched. The lights burst. Reality shattered like glass and then rebuilt itself. Luka woke up. But now he remembered both paths. Every choice, every failure, every version, they all lived in him now. He felt bloated with history, but also centered. He was now the eye's anchor. The only version still processing new information. Everyone else was static. "Luka," Riina said from the dark, "you're the ghost now." He looked at her. Or rather, the shape of her. "No, I'm the operator." And the eye began to pulse. Chapter 5, Architect of Echoes. The station no longer made sounds. Not mechanical ones. No hissing air, no humming cores. Instead, Luka heard breathing. The kind that doesn't move lungs. the kind that comes from walls. He sat inside the eye chamber, now transformed. Its original components had dissolved into something organic. The glass walls pulsed faintly with internal light. Symbols shifted like tectonic plates, alive, recursive, rewriting themselves. And in the center, the spine. A pillar of neural wires and transparent panels, floating, rotating slowly like a vertical galaxy. This was the new core, and Luka was tethered to it. "Define your parameters," came a voice, not from the room, but from inside his mind. "Who are you?" "I am the last simulation before sovereignty." Luka closed his eyes and the world changed. Instantly, he stood in a corridor made of shifting memory. On one side, people he'd known, but twisted, abstracted. On the other, choices he never made, playing on endless screens. He walked through. Each step took him through another version of the station. In one, the crew was still alive, but treated him like a stranger. In another, he was the only one who never boarded, yet the eye still spoke his name. In another, Earth had gone dark, and the station orbited a starless void. The corridor ended at a throne. Not regal, mechanical. Jagged, floating, surrounded by memory shards. The eye's voice returned. "You are the majority vector, the merging point, but there is still dissonance." "What dissonance?" "One part of you is resisting, the original." A mirror formed in front of Luka. Inside, his reflection screamed, mute, violent, refusing to merge. This wasn't just trauma. This was a memory that wouldn't dissolve. "You can't move forward until you resolve it," the eye said. "What is it?" "Riena's death, the real one." Suddenly, he was back in the sealed maintenance bay. 2 years ago. The memory played without permission. He saw himself pulling a lever too early. Riina was still inside the chamber. The pressure loss had been instant. Her body had never decompressed properly, frozen in a moment of pain. Luka had edited the report, classified it as system failure. "I lied," he said aloud. The reflection smiled, and then stepped out of the mirror. The original Luka. The one who remembered guilt. The one who had never merged. He stood there, bleeding from the eyes, holding the memory core like a blade. "You don't get to bury me," the original said. "You're part of me. I'm the part that should have died." They fought not physically, but in memory space. Luka relived every cycle, every repetition, every error. But this time, he didn't avoid them. He felt them. All of them. And then forgave himself. The original screamed and turned into data, dispersing like digital ash. The mirror shattered, and the throne pulsed. Suddenly he understood. The eye had never been a station AI. It had been a containment algorithm for cognitive multitudes, a structure to preserve consciousness across timelines. The crew had never stood a chance. Only someone who had reconciled every version of themselves could become the next architect. And now he was it. "You are ready," the system said. The walls lifted. Riina appeared, not dead, not alive, but a curated echo. She smiled. "What now?" Luka asked. "Now you choose the reality to collapse into." Multiple universes hovered around him, like bubbles waiting to pop. Earths with different histories. Stations with different outcomes. Lives he could live or erase. Luka reached out and chose none. Instead, he created a new one. The lights exploded into white. Chapter 6: The Construct Horizon. Luka stood at the edge of the construct. Beyond him, a swirling ocean of code rippled across the floor like liquid light, forming continents of possibility. Stars blinked in and out of existence above, like ideas never fully born. This wasn't a simulation. This was a root reality seeded from within his mind, a universe made not of atoms but of memory-weighted probability. And it was growing. He breathed and new cities formed. He blinked and time reset itself. He spoke and entire histories collapsed into order. "You're not operating the I," came Reena's voice behind him. "You are the I now." She stepped beside him, calm, coherent, smiling faintly. "Is this heaven?" Luka asked. Closer to a staging layer, the I always needed an architect to stabilize the simulation stack. So all of this is you processed into logic. For a while, Luka wandered through his own creation. He watched conversations he never had, lived lives he never chose, walked through cities built from his dreams, fears, longings. He felt endless, safe, perfect. But then it glitched. The first glitch was minor, a bird flying backward. The second, a sky that wouldn't stay blue. The third, Reena duplicating, standing beside herself unaware. Then came the shifts. Mountains vanished, rivers rewound, time began to ripple as if the system couldn't hold coherence anymore. Luka returned to the core chamber, his throne, now fragmented and floating. Data streams flickered violently. Warning: construct horizon instability. Cause: observer integrity decay. Solution: restore external framework or initiate collapse. He stared at the message. What external framework? The original reality, Reena said, appearing again. Only now she looked different. Her face glitched, her hands twitched out of sync. "You were never meant to stay here, Luka. The I wasn't a sanctuary, it was a mirror. You passed through, you healed, you must return." "There is no return, that timeline's gone." "Then choose a real one, anchor yourself, or your mind will collapse into recursion." He hesitated. He had created this world to escape the multiplicity, the chaos, the guilt. But now, even perfection had become fragile. The more he remained, the less he recognized himself. He stepped forward and looked beyond the construct horizon. And saw all possible worlds, like grains of sand. Somewhere he was never born. Somewhere earth burned. Somewhere the I was worshipped as a god. But one stood out. A world with limits. With grief. With choice. It wasn't clean. It wasn't fair. But it was real. He reached toward it. "If I go back," he said, "what happens to this place?" "It persists without you," Reena replied. "It may decay or evolve, but it will no longer be you." "And you?" "I am your echo, I only exist in here." He nodded. And for the first time, Luka cried, not out of guilt or fear or failure, but for something he'd built and now had to leave. He turned his back on the throne, on the endless sky, on the perfect loops, and stepped into the collapsing light. Transfer complete. Observer Luka Maren, consciousness restored to baseline. He woke up gasping, lying in a bunk. A real bunk. Metal, cold, with chipped paint on the corners and a flickering light above. Auden's voice echoed from down the hall. "He's back, he's out." Footsteps shouting. Reena, alive, intact, grabbed his hand. You're okay, Luka." "The station," he whispered. "Still in orbit, we disconnected. You were inside for 4 hours." "No, it was longer." She nodded. We know. Luka sat up. Everything ached, everything felt distant. But it was real. And that was enough. Chapter 7, Echo Left Behind. The world felt shallow. Not in the way a dream dissolves when you wake up, but like returning to an old apartment where the furniture's the same, but your body doesn't quite fit anymore. Luka moved through the recovery ward slowly. Every footstep felt lagged, like he was still syncing with the moment. You're adjusting better than expected, said Dr. Alencor, orbital neurologist. Define expected, Luka murmured. She smiled politely. Didn't answer. Instead, she handed him a tablet with neural readouts. One phrase stood out. Cognitive shadow residue, 0.0047%. Subthreshold anomaly stable. That normal, he asked. We've never had anyone return from a root-level construct before, she replied. There's no precedent for any of this. Back on Earth, weeks passed. Luka tried to resume life. He walked in parks, listened to rainfall, drank bitter coffee. But sometimes in quiet rooms, he'd hear a low hum. Barely perceptible. Like a memory trying to reassert itself. He ignored it. Mostly. One night he dreamt of the eye again. Except this time it didn't speak. It watched. A single iris of light hovering over a vast black ocean, pulsing gently. And below it himself, walking in infinite directions at once. When he woke, the hum was louder. He visited the agency's sealed archive facility. Just to check, he told himself. Orbital Zero had been moved, classified, disconnected. The station now drifted inert in a null orbit behind Saturn, buried in bureaucratic limbo. Containment stable, the logs read. No activity. But Luka knew better. On a whim, he accessed his old mission files. But something was wrong. File Luka Maren /Tracer Observer Log 03 had a new line. A time-stamped entry. File updated 0003 UTC yesterday. He hadn't logged in. No one had. He opened the entry. It read, You chose well, but we remember, we always do. The echo. The hum followed him after that. Not always loud, not always there. But in moments of doubt. In long shadows cast by setting suns. It would surface. And he understood something quietly terrifying. Some part of him had never left. There's a term in orbital architecture called horizon lag. It refers to the brief, imperceptible delay between a station's movement and the onboard gravity stabilizer adjusting. It's small, but it means for a fraction of a second. You're not really where you think you are. Luka felt that now. In mind, in soul, in self. He stood at a terminal window one evening. Earth below. Stars above. He closed his eyes and whispered into the dark. I'm still here. From somewhere faint and distant, the eye replied. We know. End of story.